Hello, in this video we're just going to quickly respond to a question that someone had on my channel. Please feel free to post any question that you want. It's always great for me to get them, as I often have to go and learn something and I can use it in my class. Anyways, moving on. So the question was essentially, they had watched the video about how to read from files, and they said, what happens if I have a situation like this? And you can see in my file here I have numbers separated by spaces, and this could be any type of combination. It could be 67, 99, 1. This works regardless of the number of lines and the number of integers per line. But what has to be true in this case is the file has to contain integers. If they don't, then we have a problem, which of course we can deal with, but in this video we're not going to look at that. So in order to deal with this, we actually use the built-in method nextInt, which is really convenient. So let's take a look. I made an array of type integer, and then I've invoked this method called readFiles, and I've passed it the name of a file I'm going to use, and I've set that up already. You could specify the path here if you needed to. So we're going to jump down to this method, and what we notice is the method has a return type of type int, and it takes a string as a parameter. And because we're going to try and be accessing files, we need to account for the thrown exception. And so here's my try catch. There's the open of my try. Here's my catch. And I just did a general exception, even though I could be more specific in terms of what the exception is. And I said, in the case that I have a bad file, or I basically have an exception thrown, I'm going to return null, meaning that the array will be a null array right now. So what did I do? So the first thing I did was I created a file object, and then I created my scanner based on that file object. And then the challenge with this is, again, this question was specifically about arrays. And the problem with an array data structure is I need to know how big it is before I actually start using it. Because once you set the size, it's set. Now, of course, there's all sorts of interesting ways to get around that, but essentially it's a static data structure, meaning once the size is set, it's fixed. So if I don't know how many actual numbers are in here I want to access, I can't make the array. So I have two loops here. The first loop simply goes through the file and counts the number of times s.nextInt can be called. Because the way s.nextInt works is it actually accesses the numbers. So the first time I call s.nextInt, it's going to generate the 1, then it will access the 2, then the 3, then the 67, then the 99. And then if it gets to the end of the line, it knows to go to the next line. So I'm just simply counting how many numbers are in this file. And then once I've done that, I actually go and create my array of that size. And then I create another scanner. Now there's probably a way to use the same scanner, but because I've read through the scanner once, my cursor location is not at the start of it. So I just create a new scanner really quickly. And then I write a loop to essentially use nextInt again, but this time, each time I pull out the integer, I place it in the array. And then when I'm done, I return the array. Now, of course, what would be better here is to use an array list, right? Because then the array list is a dynamic data structure, meaning you don't need to know how large it is at the time of construction. And therefore, you only need one loop, and you just, every time you find a number, you add it into the array list. And if you really wanted to, you could then convert it to an array. And there's all sorts of methods to do that if you didn't want to do it manually. So if we run this, there's my array. You can see the last number here is 12, but I can put like 100, 1001, I don't know, some really big number there. I'm going to save the file, and I run it. There's the array. I've actually used the arrays class toString method to really quickly print this out. It's a nice one to be aware of when you're working with arrays and just want to quickly get an output to the screen. So I hope this helped. The key thing is this nextInt method. You know, you could do this. You could read an entire line as a string and then write some fancy code to count the number of spaces that appear and then pull out each value, which is a good exercise from a development perspective. You know, figuring out how to do that is pretty cool. But in terms of efficiency, this is a far more efficient approach. I hope this helped, and as always, post any questions you have.